Hey guys, here we are, the Quiggin Out MMA Podcast, episode 25, and this is actually going to be our season 1 finale. And I cannot believe the guest who is on the other side of the screen, the one and only Nathaniel Moon, Sherman Augustus. How we doing, sir?
Hey, I'm good. Let me do one thing. Let me put my phone on silent. We can keep rolling. I just want to put it on do not disturb because my mom would probably call and something like that. So
Listen, it isn't a show without some technical difficulties or without an interruption,
As we know.
Yeah. We won't even talk about that. We'll be here all night.
Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate you taking the time. Without being a fanboy, I am a huge fan of yours. I loved.
Oh, thanks, Matt. Thank you, Matt.
Loved Into the Badlands.
Oh man.
And I was very upset when it was taken off the air. But actually, before we talked, I rewatched your battle with the Widow and your first real introduction into the show with Daniel Wu. So what was that like for it to be, the first episode where you're really brought on and that's what you get to do?
It was intimidating, to tell you the truth, because like a month and a half before I had put myself on tape for the show because at first I didn't watch the show season 1 until the end, right? Because I'm figuring like, okay, so there's a show about martial arts and I'm not on it. Oh, that's just jacked up. So I was really hating on everything at that point. And, one day my mom called me. She goes, "Hey, Sherman, have you seen Badlands?" I'm like, "No, Mom, I don't want to watch it either because I'm not on it." Click. So she was laughing at me. And a couple of weeks later, I just opened myself up to it. I just said, "Look, man, if something comes through, I'm going to open myself up to that because it seems like a really cool show to do." And I heard that they were moving from New Orleans to Dublin, so I'm like, okay, as an actor, that's how you get your traveling in, baby. It is, and it's free, right? So I had auditioned for it, and it was right at the tail end of pilot season, and I had been going through just up for this pilot, up for that show, this, that, and I was burnt out, and I was just over it, right? And the audition process, there was 2 scenes. There was a scene with Daniel and Nick and I in the mortuary, that very emotional scene. And the other scene was the leading up to the fight scene between Daniel and I in the mortuary when we had the big fight scene. And it was about maybe 10 pages of dialogue.
Oh, wow.
Right. So my best friend, business partner, director, producer extraordinaire, whole 9 yards, Tim Cockshell, we shot it, and we shot it like a film. We shot those particular 2 scenes like we were shooting on the day. And Tim said, "Yo, man, if you don't get this gig, then something's wrong with him." So 4 weeks goes, but 4 weeks go by, and it was 4 weeks that went by, and I didn't hear anything. And I remember I had a couple of meetings and auditions that day. And again, like I said, I was just burnt out. So I go by my agent's office, and I'm prepared to just let everybody have it. I'm just over it. And I'm like, no, I'm just go home, chill. Went back out to Tim's house. We were working on a couple of tracks. Because music is like my first love, but we had to put it on the back burner for a while. So we're recording a couple of tracks and drinking Jameson, right. So I get home and I get this phone call from Susan Holmes about 4:45 that morning, and I couldn't understand the accent. She was like, "The man is showing, this is Susan Holmes from Into The Badlands. I'm calling about bringing you over here to do Badlands. Could you do that today? Can we get you on the plane at 4:30? I'm like, "What?
Today?
Click, clack. Who's messing with me this morning?" So I called my agent Joe, and Joe's at the gym. "Yeah, they just called me. Congratulations." So I'm like, all right, so she's going to call me back. I had to get I had already filled out, my passport had expired
Oh, no.
a couple of months before. But it's cool because what happens is production, all they need to do is email the federal department. I go over with proper ID, all that kind of stuff. I already filled out my the paperwork, and I had just like a week before took new photos for my passport. So it was expedited very quickly. All right, so
it's a pretty cool perk to have.
Yeah, I left Friday morning, got there Saturday evening, did hair, wardrobe, the whole 9 yards. That day, had one day to basically rest and prepare. And I was on that bridge shooting that scene that morning at 5 a.m. in the morning. So it was quite interesting. But you're in the mix now, you know. So the only thing to do is just to go through it. So the thing with Badlands is there was not a lot, we don't do like rehearse fight scenes a day before, 2 days before. You watch what Master Didi puts in front of you. You watch your stunt performer and Daniel's stunt performer do it, and then we pair off with our particular stunt performers for about, so maybe you get, on the average, you get about 25, 30 minutes. That's it. So
that's it.
Oh so because I mean, all those guys are just professionals to the end. I mean, you're talking about the Matrix. You're talking about you keep going and keep going and keep going and Kill Bill and you know these things. And when you have actors that can actually perform, if it's not too dangerous, perform it. Like Daniel loves to perform his own stuff, except for he won't do too much crazy wire work, right? A lot of us didn't, but a lot of like Louis Tan, he doesn't care. Louis would just does everything. So so basically, I was standing on that bridge, learned the choreography, and we went at it. And that particular fight scene took, because there's two units, there's a fight unit and a drama unit. That particular fight scene took 6-7 days to do because we had to, you know, we shot it, went back, they shot everything. But they wanted to get more angles and, you know, a higher angle and this, that, and the third. And then we had to do the whole thing when I take the sword and pop it and it goes against the guy's throat. So, you know, we had to go back and redo that because they had to visually put that in. And so, yeah, that was very interesting. Everyone was so warm and inviting. And later on that week, we were all hanging out. It was someone's birthday, and we were all just hanging out. And Daniel leans over to me and he goes, "You know, we offered this to Wesley Snipes." I'm like, "What?"
Heard about this.
I'm like, you know, I'm a Wesley fan, man, and I'm like, I'm trying to figure this out. Why would he turn it down? And I just couldn't come to any conclusions because I know he was just coming off of a television show for NBC. But you know, like I said, you know, I'm a Wesley fan, and you know, he passed on it. So, you know, there it is. I'm standing right there. Yeah, cheers. You know, and it's the same thing. I pass on something, some other actor gets the gig or whatever. But you don't feel, you know, I should have took that gig kind of thing because what's yours is yours. I truly feel that. But it was that episode, because they shoot in blocks, that episode takes, it took a month and a half to shoot that particular episode. So, yeah. So, you know, it was cool to be there, but when I was standing on that bridge, it was just like, okay, you're in the game now. It's like, you know, when I played my first professional football game, you walk on the field and go, you're in the game now. Same thing with college, same thing with high school, you know, when you're starting. You know, when you're playing your first Pop Warner game, you go, oh, I'm in it now, kind of thing. So it was fun to do. I had to, you know, since there's two units, you know, when you're on fight unit, you're fighting all day, so that's a play day for you. And then when you go do drama unit, then, you know, for me, both were serious, but, you know, I consider myself an actor's actor. I do consider myself an actor's actor because, you know, if you learn your trade, then basically that's what you are. It's just not one thing or the other. Not for me. And it was very educational, very hard to do because you have two full crews. And when you're working on a show like Badlands or Stranger Things, the minute you walk on the set, right, you know, when you start talking to crew members and even craft service, they know they have something special if everybody's working their tail off. And once you see that, once I saw that with Badlands, I'm like, okay, I can't mess around. These people are working their tail off every day to bring a really cool product to life because we can't let down the fans. So yeah, I mean, it's a long explanation, but it was crazy. It was crazy, and to be across from Daniel and Nick Frost, it was just bananas. So hats off to those guys.
I feel like I kind of look like Nick Frost today. So
yeah, you do, man. You do.
But I think it's crazy that within 24 hours of being told, hey, we want you to come, you were already shooting. Like, I don't even know how you would process something like that.
You don't. I got on the airplane and I just started going through the script and making notes and just finding that character. Nathaniel Moon was so me. It was so easy to put that guy on because of what I was going through. Because, like I said, it was a really tumultuous.
It's okay.
Yeah. Pilot season that time, and I was just burnt out. So I kind of like sequestered myself from everybody because I had to do all this stuff. And it was easy to fall into Nathaniel because of the simple fact that he has sequestered himself because of what he was going through.
Mm-hmm.
So I always use what's personal to me as an actor in order to have real behavior, to find things out about myself. So that was quite interesting. I learned a lot about myself and where I was as a person, who I am as a man. And I really, really, those are the kind of roles that I'm gravitated to. I can't just do an acting job because it's an acting job. It's got to be something that I can put on that suit and let the behavior of that particular character shine through me. And I was saying this in the interview a couple of days ago. I always let the character evaluate me. And what that is I let the character ask me specific questions about what have I been through in my life to get that particular character off the page. And then therefore we go on from there. The dialogue becomes easier.
Mm-hmm.
Memorizing everything becomes easier. And then behavior starts to fall in place. And then before you know it, you're able to do that guy all the time. And no matter what they throw at you, you're able to be in that character. And it's just surprising that these emotions and these behavior patterns start coming up that you don't notice every day, but I'm loaning it to this other individual. So it's cool.
Well, and I mean, if I really didn't know any better, the amount of you put into that role, it almost seems like they wrote the character off of you instead of the other way around. Because you're right.
Yeah.
You just embody that character, and anyone who watched you on screen, that introduction, the bridge, and then the fight with, Daniel, it's insane how good that looks.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like a David versus Goliath, even though you are quite a bit bigger than him. At least the, like you said, angles, shutter speed.
Yeah.
But
I think Daniel has he's almost an inch taller than me, and I think he did come in a little heavier, not much. Not heavier as fat, but muscle mass.
Mm-hmm.
And that was season 1. He came in with a lot of muscle mass. I remember speaking to him, talking to him one day, and he leaned down because you have to balance and you have to move, and you're going to lose that muscle mass anyway because you're running around, you're sweating in your costume all day long, even when it's cold as.
You can say whatever. You could say it.
Yeah. Even when you're cold as hell, which we know hell as in cold. It was you got to be able to move in that costume, and I got to say, Giovanni Lipari basically designed those things to keep us warm, but they were flexible and movable.
Mm-hmm.
And it was none of that stuff was cheap material. If it was supposed to be some kind of animal hair, it was animal hair. If it was supposed to be silk, it was freaking silk. It was Italian leather. I'm like, dude, I'm gonna take this back to LA and roll down Melrose. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? I'm taking everything home.
Well, I wanted to ask, but you brought it up.
Oh yeah. Oh, I got stuff.
Okay.
Trust me.
That's all.
Oh, they were like, do you want this? I don't want that, but I want that. You
Yeah.
know, so I got the sword sitting over there.
Oh my God, you do?
I have one of the moon swords over there.
Oh my God.
Every now and then I'll stand on the balcony and I'll, hey, what's up? What's up, neighbors?
I'm not gonna lie. If I walked out of my house and I saw you with a Chinese 5-ring,
yeah, Chinese 5-ring broadsword, swinging it, like, hey, good morning, Sherman. Good morning.
I'd be like, goodbye.
But it's a fun thing, man, and it was interesting because I didn't have any weapon experience other than basic, extremist sticks. But everything else, my background is Tae-Kwondo and Kutsu, and it's wushu on the show. So that was an adjustment, because a lot of times Callie or someone, will come over to me and go, Master Didi didn't like that. It was too Taekwondo. I'm like, man, come on, man. Yeah, come on. No, he wants you to, present it more, So I'm like, all right, okay.
Well, and that was a question too, being, you're not just somebody who dabbles in Taekwondo,
Yeah.
From what I could see, a 2nd degree black belt. That's
Yes.
no, understatement of that. So was it hard, like you were just saying, was it hard to have moments where you're like, well, I'd rather do this, or this movement really doesn't work, but this one does?
Yeah, it was hard for me a lot of times because they wanted it specific. They wanted the movement, very specific. So every now and then, when it came to punching or something like that, I was able to do more rigid, hard to show, the power at the end of it. It wasn't like boom, and come back. It was more like, setting up and sticking it and then bringing it back really slowly. So that was interesting. But again, it was something that I had to adapt to. So I never said anything about it. Maybe once or twice I may have, said something, but I was just like, look, dude, I'm here. I'll just get it done. And you know what? I had one of my masters years ago tell me, and even, Bruce Lee spoke about that. If you're learning a new discipline, you have to unlearn everything else. And it's hard to, because ego and all these other things come involved. I'm a black belt in XYZ, right? Yeah, well, you're not a black belt in this or that. So that's why it's always good to open yourself up to other things, but and you learn a lot. I mean, the guys and the women on Badlands are the best in the world, period. And I see that Vidan just finished Cyberpunk, and Vidan worked with me a lot season 2. And he just finished Cyberpunk, and he brought Andy Long came over and did something on that. And there's a good clip of Andy Long fighting Keanu in Cyberpunk. My God. It was just like, oh, dude, it was just like, I'm like, oh. And so you're working with these guys every day, and they're the best in the world. And a little story about Andy and the guys. Somehow Jackie Chan saw some of their stuff. And showed up on their doorstep, knocked on their door. Hi, I'm Jackie Chan, and I want you guys to come direct this commercial. Yeah, like that, like that, like that.
You know what? I thought Broadsword on the Balcony was number one. No, Jackie Chan showing up at the front door.
Yeah. And Jackie Chan used to be Daniel Wu's manager. So I was just like, and he told me how that went down. He was at a party and he was in school to be a architect. And, he said, hey, you want to act? I said, yeah, okay, sure. All right.
Wow.
Exactly.
But it's that easy, though. Just like, met at a party, hey.
Yeah, it's just being in the right place at the right time, and if you're willing to come out of your comfort zone and step out on faith to learn something new. And that's what my mother kept saying to me, it's just like kind of frustrated. And she's like, just step out on faith and just do it. So, 24 hours later, 48 hours later, I was standing on that bridge. And I just had to let it go.
So any kids watching, don't start singing that song. Please.
Don't do it. Yeah. Exactly.
Well,
Exactly.
and I love, learning more about you and finding out about the black belt part of it because you are a martial artist. You aren't just
Yeah.
an actor. You aren't just a former football player. Um, which, by the way, trying to find any of your football history is very difficult on the internet.
Good. 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 Because my career, if you blink, that was my career. You know. But I do have to say that football did open up a lot of doors for me.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, when I stopped playing, I was like 225, so I had to just slim back a lot. And I remember I was like, okay, I kind of missed the camaraderie. I miss slamming into somebody and, taking people's heads off. And I just miss all that. So I did a film in Texas. I did 2 films back to back in Texas, one in Dallas and one in Houston. And the first film was a film called Kangaroo, which will never see the light of day. And
those are the best ones.
Yeah, exactly. Tiny Lister, who just died last week, was in that with me. He's grew up here in LA with me. He actually grew up in Compton, but we knew each other from football and everything, and then we both got into the business at the same time.
That's cool.
Yeah, and I had to work with this Tae-Kwondo master, and did well enough to get an honorary black belt. And the next film, I came home for 2 weeks and went to Dallas to shoot this other film.
Mm-hmm.
And Philip Tan, Louis Tan's dad,
Mm-hmm.
was the fight stunt coordinator on that. So we did a rehearsal the day before we shot, myself, Boyd Blake, and Philip, and he just said, look, dude, you would be good at this. So you should do it. So then I took it to heart and got back to LA and just kept going.
And that was, 13 years ago?
Something like that. I don't
23,
know.
excuse me,
I
sorry.
remember in that class when I first started training with Master Jen. It was me, Moses, Jesus was in there. Jesus was there for a little bit. He was in that class. He got his black belt. I'm just playing. It was so long ago, yeah.
Well, and that's crazy just because I kind of wanted to touch on the ego aspect because I train jiu-jitsu.
Wow.
One of my professors, same thing, he's a black belt in BJJ, but when he went to other, forms, he's like, you had to check that ego at the door. You could not walk in there and go, I'm a black belt at this, I'll be a black belt at this. And the same thing with one of my training partners, Miguel, same exact thing. He's a black belt in Taekwondo, came into jiu-jitsu, and he's like, took the black belt off. He's like, put on a white belt. Let's start from the beginning. And you can see it sometimes when he's rolling, where it's that Taekwondo brain will try to kick in. And he'll be able to incorporate something from it into jiu-jitsu. But martial art as a whole, like you said, I think it was about probably 20 years ago, we'll say, for you. That's a long time to be involved in it. But to really master and understand that it's not just about the body mechanics, it's not just about the skill set, it's the ego.
It's your ego. And another thing about that, I'm pretty sure you've seen somebody walk into the dojo or dojang and basically, come in with this whole I'm a whoop ass kind of attitude, and then somebody in there whoops their ass.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Or even, the master whoops their ass. And I've seen that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And those guys don't come back.
Nope.
They don't come back because they got checked. And I'll run into a guy or somebody like that on the streets, and we'll have a conversation about that. And I'm like, dude, when you came in, basically you have this attitude. And you may have a third degree in XYZ over here, but when you came in, we all noticed the attitude, like you were just gonna come in and serve everybody. And, once you got around to Master Park or Master Jen, when you got served, it was like, we tried to tell you, don't do that. It was one time we were training, this is when I moved on to Master Park, and we were training one day, we were sparring, it was on a Friday, the noon class, and Taka, who was the 2nd degree black belt, we all had to do rounds. We all had to do rounds with Master Park.
Oh, no.
And so And so he had already caught me with a spinning wheel kick. So I'm like, okay, cool. So it was Taka's turn. So Taka did something, and it was beautiful. He did a block, and then he did a trap, and then he hit Master Park right in the solar plex, right? Knocks the wind out of him. And he went running around the ring going, 2 years, 2 years. It took him 2 years to get him back for something he did 2 years ago. And we were all on the side going, Taka, no, right? So once he regained his composure, he said, okay, who's next? So he went through all of us, even the girls. He just served us all up an ass that day. We were all, right? It was because, and we were trying to tell Taka, so then we had to do like 2-on-1 sparring. And so when we sparred with Taka, we got his ass real good. We got it. There was no technique. We just ran, tapped him, and was like, don't you ever. It was like, he was like, okay. You know, you just don't do that. And I've seen guys get the shit kicked out of them because the guy may have been a black belt sparring with a red belt or a green belt and actually hurt that person, right? So you're like, okay, all right, cool. You know, you got to spar with me now.
Yeah.
And then it's just that whole thing. And there was this one black belt one time. He just had no control on his kicks. And I was shooting a commercial with Bryan Cranston that Friday. This was on a Wednesday night. And there was supposed to be no kicking to the face. So I saw the kick, and I'm like, is he actually kicking me in my face? And he got me. And my immediate reaction was just to go completely left on this guy. But I held my composure, bowed, gave him a hug. But I got him the following week. I got his ass good. And that particular day, he did break his arm. On his own, we were working on tumbling.
Oh, I'm like,
and yeah.
Well, you didn't say someone broke his arm. You said he broke his arm.
He broke his arm. Yeah, he broke his arm. So we had already served his ass up a good ass whooping that night. And we started working on tumbling and falling. And he didn't tumble correctly and broke his arm. And we were like, pay back some mother scritching, ain't it, homie?
And it is a thing to go in there because years ago when I had first started, I stepped away for a while because I rolled with somebody who was greener than me. Mm-hmm. You know, I've been following MMA for, at this point, probably 4 or 5 years. So I have an understanding of the sport, which I realized at that time I was wrong. Because just because you watch it and you can see what's going on does not mean the same as the body mechanics.
No.
And he caught me in an armbar, and I felt my elbow pop, and I was like, okay, wow. And I ran out of there. I was like, okay, no, we're not doing this. I jump in every now and then, and I couldn't stay away. And last year I was finally able to get to a point where I'm like, I have a job that allows me to do this. I was like, I have the hours to do it, and I have, the most amazing dojo family to support me.
Right.
Little did I know that in that same time, my now 5-year-old nephew would start training when he was 3. He's 30 pounds at 5 years old. He's very, very tiny. He competed for the first time last weekend and got second place.
That's awesome.
And I went, but it's brought like my mom, my grandma. So at the competition, it's me, so my little sister, my nephew, my grandma, my mom. So it like brought the whole family together. So I realized, like, I couldn't have imagined a year and a half ago, that would have started to happen.
Right.
So it really, most people just think it's self-defense, but there's so much more to it.
No, the benefit of it is camaraderie, number one. But also, it's not about, okay, I can save myself in a street fight or whatever the case may be. Master Park will always say, remember your training. And the reason why he says that all the time is because one of our black belt friends fell off a ladder, and as she was falling, she just said, "I just remember my training." So it was a back fall. So all she did was prepare herself for a back fall, and she looked at her belt line and just went, "Bow!" No problems, right? And how many times have we just tripped and fell? The other day I was at the gas station, slipped on something. I'm not going down. No, I'm not going down. And then so I went down, and stupid me, I was trying to on the pump island thing, going over the nozzle hose, and and I had a gas can in my hand because I was going to put gas in my Z here back at the house because I just got it back, and I'm going over the thing by my Porsche, and I slipped on some, I don't know what the fuck was on the ground, and I slipped and was tumbling. I'm like, oh, everybody's watching, and all I did was just take a perfect roll and rolled and popped up with the gas can in my hand like it was nothing. And it brought back memories of when I worked at this theater years and years ago in high school. I worked at this theater, and I saw a kid fall down the stairs with his nachos in his hand. And he did not lose one nacho. And he jumped up and he goes, didn't lose my nachos. And I'm like, so when that happened, I'm like, hey, I didn't myself up. So it was so funny. And this other guy was like, yo, man, I fell at the gas station last week. Welcome to the club. Okay, buddy. That was a trip. I will not do that again.
Well, that was literally a trip.
It was literally a trip. Yeah, because I had on some Chuck Taylors and I slipped on something and just went down. So, but it was quite funny.
So I got goosebumps when you just told that story about the girl falling off a ladder. Because this morning, because I had class this morning, our professor earlier in the week fell off a house during his job. And he literally said, as he was falling, looked down at his belt line, did the back fall, and he's in there training. He fell off a house. Yeah. So, when I think about that, I always think about remember your training. And it doesn't mean, you're in the fight or how to, defend yourself, take a gun away from somebody or whatever. It means like, if you slip and fall, everything, your reaction time in your car, whatever it is, you just remember your training. And that's all it takes. Just remember your training. And your situation awareness also. It's just your training. Just remember where you are. If you're at a ATM or how's the surface, which I should have remembered the other day. How's the surface? Where am I going to step if something happens? What's behind me if somebody steps up on me? What's behind me? What's inside of me? Because it's just feet work. It's just training. It's just a feet work. You can avoid all kind of stuff and just take off. You don't need to be like, come on. You can just, avoid that and just book if you can. Absolutely. So, and that applies to everything. I mean, just look at driving. So many people are worried about what someone else is going to do. I'm like, no, focus on what you need to do.
What you're doing. Yeah.
And that changes everything. So.
Yeah, guys on motorcycle. A buddy of mine fell on his motorcycle, did the same thing. Remembered his training. Just said, oh, well, I got a helmet on. I'll do a shoulder roll, but I'll use some of this because I got a helmet on. Roll, popped up, it's like back on his bike. Now I got to get my bike painted. I'm like, oh, dude, but you all right? Yeah, nothing's wrong with me.
So I'll say this, and I won't say for who, but I handle motorcycle claims for an insurance company. So I deal with that stuff. But I'll talk to people, and I'll be like, car versus motorcycle, and you're able to talk to me, you're doing all right.
Awesome.
You're doing all right.
You're doing good. Yeah.
So I understand that completely. So, we talked about, like I said, the martial arts part of it is still fascinating to me because you aren't just somebody who picked it up because of the show. You came into the show with an established martial art, and the guys that you work with, like you said, not just the masters, but people like Daniel Wu and Louis Tan. I don't know, I can't remember, and I hate myself for this, if you ever got to work with Kung Lee, who was actually an MMA fighter.
Yes, I did. We didn't work together, but we did a lot of training together because, even when you're shooting, we still had fight camps on the weekend. I mean, you can be dog tired from working all week, but, like Saturday mornings or during the week when you're not working, we would hold a fight camp and we would go on. And that way you stay loose and, you're prepared for whenever you're going to work again because you will get tired and sore. And muscles do get tight. And Kung is a gentleman. A gentleman.
I was
Absolutely.
hoping.
Yeah, he's a gentleman. So we did a couple of fight camps together, and it was always myself, Ali, and Vidan, and Kung, and Daniel. Season 2, season 3. Matt Lucas was with us, and Matt Lucas is responsible for getting Daniel prepared and ready for season 1. because Daniel would tell me, man, I was all just beat up, this, that, all that kind of stuff. So Matt is the sweetest, nicest individual in the world, but he can kill you with a toothpick. He's that dangerous.
Is his last name Wick?
I think he would fuck John Wick up. You know, but he would probably, like, him and John Wick will have a great conversation. But Matt kept us nice and loose and kept us healthy for a year, season 3. You know, that's really hard to do. And, you know, we did 2 weeks of fight camp before shooting, and then once or twice a week during the week, we would do a fight camp. I mean, you would work out on your own, but with Matt's workouts, Matt will work you off for 4 hours. You're done. And it's just, we would do a lot of combat yoga to, you know, get your body back. And we would do the same exercises that they used to teach the ancient samurai. Mm-hmm. And very interesting, a lot of stress positions, but I got to tell you, working with Matt, we were all just ripped up, like crazy. So I know Aramis Knight and Daniel are, well, this week they were up there working with Matt because they both got something they got coming up. Mm-hmm. I think Aramis is going to be doing Miss Marvel, I think. Ooh. So he's playing a character that, you know, is just, you know, doing all the stuff. So he's working with Matt again, and next time I get a chance, I'm gonna go up to the Bay Area and work out with him. And his knowledge is just so extensive on just, you know, replacing, you know, muscle fibers and getting you loose and prepared. And, you know, what I mean by muscle fibers, like just making sure that you're getting nutrition to certain areas that you're lacking. Like if you have a shoulder problem, we will work on certain exercises. So, you know, you can, you know, do certain things with your shoulders and move certain ways again without, okay, I gotta throw a left. Okay, you know. And so it's just like, oh man, everything's working perfectly. This is great. So it was interesting. It was interesting. So hats off to Matt Lucas. Love that man.
For sure. You look like a boxer when you were like throwing. Nice and tight, you know, there.
Look out, hey.
Listen, I love watching some of the old boxing because I never really appreciated it until recently. You know, because boxing a lot of the times nowadays there's a lot of hugging. There's not a lot of technique behind it, and I don't mean any disrespect to any of them. But it was like, then I started watching, you know, Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury, and you're going, holy shit. Yeah. Like, you know, and then you go back and we'd watch like the old Ali fights. Yeah. You know, his battles with Joe Frazier, you know, some of his other ones that are lesser known that he literally had to come back. So, sorry, that was on a side tangent there. But
you know, I've always been a Roy Jones fan. Was a Tyson fan. Although it got to a point where Tyson fights were ending too damn quickly.
Yep. Not good for pay-per-view.
Yeah. And I remember that one punch that Roy did on, I forgot the guy, but it was a straight out one punch. Bell rang, came out, got the guy right in the kidney. The guy went down. It's just over. And always Mayweather fan. You know, Floyd talked a lot of smack, but, you know, I like the way he would avoid punches. Yeah, you know, and just roll out of the way with that shoulder. And then I'm thinking about it as a martial artist. I'm thinking about what if you're fighting someone like that, what do you do? Because you're consuming a lot of energy. You're consuming a lot of energy trying to swing on somebody and make contact. And, you know, that person's able to get out of the way all the time. And I think for me, the one thing that's key is just use your jab. Mm-hmm. You know, if it's a boring fight, it's just going to be a boring fight, you know, but I'm just jab until I catch him coming back, you know, and then unload.
Lots of feints.
Quite interesting.
Feints at that point because...
Yeah.
Well, we watched that Tyson Roy Jones I'm.
Oh, I didn't watch it. I couldn't.
I
No,
had to.
no.
It's the same reason I watched Mayweather and the other guy whose name I'm not even going to say because he doesn't deserve the extra recognition.
No, we were in Dublin at that time when that fight happened.
Oh my God!
We all went over to Daniel's house, and that whole week, every dude in Ireland was like, "Fuck the Mayweathers," you know. Like, yeah, okay, cool, man, cool, all right, cool. And that fight was interesting, and I remember the other guy had some trouble that happened in Dublin. One day, it was something went down. It was not too far from where I was living. I'm like, why are the cops going by? So because you never see that in Ireland, right? And it's like, oh, so that's what happened the other night. He, got into an argument with somebody at a pub. Okay.
Oh yeah, the old guy.
Damn. Yeah.
So
yeah,
shout out
so
if that guy ever watches this show, shout out to that guy for taking a solid punch and not even moving, just being
exactly.
Yep. Okay.
Exactly.
Let me go back to drinking my drink.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, seriously, I saw this little 5'0" blonde girl put her boyfriend on his ass one night, and I was heading home. We had all went out one Saturday night, and I was heading back to my house, and stopped into Starbucks and to get a coffee, and I walk out and I see this couple across the street by the park arguing. And she was like, I told you, if you ever bring that bitch around me again, I was gonna fucking kick your ass, right? And so he kept trying to hug her. He says, don't fucking touch me. Don't fuck, right? And it was beautiful. She had the best skills I've ever seen, even from a guy, right? Because she was underneath him, and it was just like she was like how Tyson used to get underneath people. She was right underneath him, and she was right here. And as she threw her right, she leaned out the way and caught him right here. And she just went bow and came back and set up.
And squared back up.
Kadoosh, right? And so I'm standing next to the guy who's like security at Starbucks, and I go, and I was just it was just crazy, and I got coffee all over me because she knocked this guy, her boyfriend, on his ass. And she said, I told you, didn't I? I told you. It's going to fucking kick your ass. I'm like, oh my God, Irish women, yes. They will go to war with you.
I knew what you were going to say, and I almost spit out my water. So I'm glad
I told you I was going to put you on your fucking ass there. I was like, oh, snap. And she was in heels and everything. It was just perfect. She just got underneath him, and she just went like this, and she just came straight up and just, wow, and brought it back. I'm like, oh, somebody need to be, oh my God. She's got to be a boxer.
Yeah.
She's got to be.
Because you don't just learn that.
No. She was just right. I told you. And he went to hug her. She goes, no, clap. And he went, kadoosh. Why did you do that? I told you. We were cracking up. It was funny. It was so funny.
Well, we've talked about it on the show. I've thrown 2 punches in my whole life.
Yeah.
One of them missed. And the other one, it was like 10th grade.
Wow.
And, yeah. I was never into sports. I was never into, like, physical.
Yeah.
I was a band kid. I was a musician. So I thought that was
nothing
pretty
wrong
cool.
with that, man. Nothing wrong
photography. I was into anything that didn't get me hit.
Yeah, exactly.
And I remember I was on the bus, and the girl I was dating at the time, we were dating for like 2 weeks, broke up with me. And all the kids on the bus were making fun of me. And this one kid just kept going and egging. And I was like, I get up to him, and I walk up to him, and I go, and my hand opens before the punch lands. Just opens right in his face. And I looked at my hand, and I looked at him, and I said, guess you're not worth it. And I went and sat back down like a lunatic. Like it was like nothing had ever happened. So punching, not my forte. So
well, that's another thing as far as martial arts is concerned. There's a way to always de-escalate a situation just by looking at someone, and in the tone of your voice. just by doing that. And it lets that person know I should not be fucking with this person right now. No matter if it's hot. I mean, why am I arguing with you? Why am I going to argue with you? Because if we get into a conversation, a confrontation physically, then all bets are off. So I'm going to speak to you so you can understand what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to look at you like I'm going to eat your head. Okay? Well, I'm not going to fight you. I'm going to eat your head. I'm going to be wearing your head as a hat when we're done. So let's just
walk
call
away.
It even.
Yeah.
And let's just walk away, because, and it's like that sometimes. A neighbor of mine was having an argument with two guys one day, and actually I was leaving the next day to go back to Detroit to resume filming on Low Winter Sun, and so they were like, "You can come down here too." Yeah. I'm like, "Oh, me?
Me? Okay.
I'll be right down." Okay. So I happen to have on one of Master Park's shirts, and I cut the sleeves off, and it had my rank and my name on it and everything in the school. And I walk across the street, and the guy, he's about 6'8", 6'6". He walks up on me, and I'm like, "Dude, come on, man. I'm not gonna fight you. I'm not gonna fight you. I'm gonna kill you. So you better be prepared to kill me." So we all stood there. We had conversations. Then it de-escalated. Then it got cool. And he said, "Man, do you train with Master Park up on that?" I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "Okay, I'm glad we didn't fight." Because I trained with him for about 3 or 4 months, and it was some of the hardest training I ever did in my life, because he was all about cardio, steps, do this, do that, all this kind of stuff before we even got to doing anything else. Mm-hmm. So he was like, "Yo, his cardio is crazy." That's why I moved on, because we were doing more cardio than everything else. But it was like that. For the places I trained at were not belt factories. Mm-hmm. And
people need to understand that is.
We're staying in business because I'm giving you a belt. I'm giving you a belt. No, not belt factories. The average, to get your black belt, on the average, should take 3, maybe 4 years to get your black belt. It was almost 5 years before we started getting black belts, because he would tell you we had to learn not only Tae-Kwondo forms but Kutsu forms. So by the time you get to your black belt with both forms, that's 16, 17 forms right there. And plus, your hand techniques, your one-step sparring, your falling techniques, your breaking techniques, on and on. And you go on from breaking boards to breaking certain bricks and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it was in, spinning wheel breaks. If you didn't do a certain break, you didn't get your belt that day. Later on the next week or whatever, it goes, "Okay, come up here." Somebody's got to hold hold the board, and you have to do. I know for the black belt, you have to do spinning wheel. You have to do a spinning wheel kick and break 2 boards. Jeez. And also you had to do a double jumping front kick and break the boards. So you couldn't just break one and get your belt. You had to do both. So it was crazy. It wasn't a belt factory. So I'll say that much. It wasn't a belt factory.
No, and that's what people need to understand, is that they're out there. It's an unfortunate, and it becomes very apparent. And I feel like as a martial artist, accepting something that you didn't earn shouldn't happen.
Yeah.
And I know, like, I got my blue belt 6 months ago. And I didn't think I was going to get it, because with COVID shutdowns, we weren't training. Yeah. I was like, no way. And my professor and I have known each other for the better part of almost a decade at this point. He knows me personally. He knows my family, like, really knows us. And I remember him calling me up, and he looked at me, and he pulled me in close. And he said, "You're going to grow into this." He goes, "I almost wasn't going to give it to you." He goes, "But you did some things in the last 2 weeks, changed my mind."
Right.
And one of the brown belts pulled me in and he goes, "Don't you fucking quit on us now. We've put too much work into you.
It's hard work
for you to quit." And because so many people quit when they get a blue belt. They get the blue belt and they go, "Okay, I accomplished something." You know, for me, I'm looking for 3 years from now getting a purple belt. 3 to 4 years from there getting a brown belt. However long it takes to get to that point. Because it is something I love. And we talked about the discipline, the ego, but it's one of those things where you can walk into the mat after the worst day of your life. The absolute worst day of your life. And when you leave there, you forget what you were upset about.
Right. Because you every day that you train, you should learn a little bit more about yourself and also the technique that you're doing. And I always looked at it as another form of cross training, you know, and another form of preparing myself for the long run, because as an actor, I knew that this is just an extra bonus. So when Badlands did come around, I already had it. You know, and it was quite funny because a couple of years before that, I had did this wacky film called The Foreigner with Steven Seagal, and I had to fight Steven Seagal, and
and you trained out of somewhere that used to be his too, right?
Yeah. The studio, Master Park Studio, was Steven's studio.
Full circle, man. Full circle.
It's like, you know, there's a saying: there's only 4 living rooms in Hollywood. So, and you know, Steven got a kick out of that. But yeah, man, very interesting. Very, very, very interesting. Very interesting.
I can't even imagine what that was like.
You know, I went through all these weeks of just, you know, I'm going to do all this, and I'm going to kutsu off. I'm going to run and hit the wall and jump off and do a roundhouse. It was none of that shit. None of this shit that we do on Badlands. It was none of that. We just said, look, we're going to stand right here. We're going to one-step spar. That's real shit. And I was like, okay, because that's what happens. You know, you're not going to be doing all this fancy stuff. We're going to stand right here in the box, and you know, it's one of those things to where you go, okay. So I didn't look at it as a form of me being in the mix with him and all this and that kind of stuff. It was like, all right, what can I learn from this? You know, what can I really take away from this if I had to fight somebody like this? So. And I learned something very valuable. It was one thing I did learn was when you see action fights and all these things, if they're swinging wild and they're blocking this and that kind of stuff, I always find it better if you go back to one-step sparring, where you know you're doing if you have to pair off with somebody for testing. Master Park will always say, aim for the nose. And that was the first thing that Steven said. He goes, no, man. What you want to do is aim straight for my nose. Therefore, it's easier for me to, you know, to block and trap or whatever. And it's better. So even if the person you're fighting with is a novice and they have to punch at you and you have to react and do certain things, I always tell them that, aim right here. If I don't get out the way, it's my nose. Fine. Bump it. But it makes it easier, and it makes the action a lot better. Even when you're kicking, swinging, you know, just come around and look straight for that nose, because it's easier for them to react. So yeah, it's a trick.
No, and it's something now I'm going to be looking at, like how to incorporate that into something.
Right.
You know, we're not throwing strikes, but at the same time, accidents happen. I took a knee a couple weeks ago to the head right here. I thought for sure my head was going to be all bruised. Oh, nothing. And I went, all right. This morning I took an elbow to the jaw, and I'm like, no, we're good.
Very resilient.
Yeah. It's the beard. It's what I have left of it anyways. But
yeah.
You know, one of the things I kind of glanced over going back to Badlands, just because I could literally talk to you all day about it, that and martial arts at this point, is obviously in the first episode you got your hand cut off.
Yeah.
You even look painful about that. Like, it wasn't even your hand, but you look like...
I'll tell you why it was painful. All right. So what they had to do, they had to pin my right arm behind my back.
Okay.
And it was back there for a couple of hours. And I'm like, dude, and can you imagine going to use the restroom and you're trying to do everything in one hand and say, hey, let me help you? No, I got this. I got it. So that was interesting. And I knew coming back that I was going to get this prosthetic hand, but I just had to, just the most extreme confident that they were going to give me the Darth Vader articulating, rotating hand. No such thing. So I had to get this. It went through variations. The whole hand thing went through variations of different prototypes, and they finally came up with a gauntlet and a hand that looks so real. And basically, I had to put on this glove that had the fingers, and then I had to do this other attachment for both the backhand and the palm, and it clicked on, and it was formed to my hand because I had to take a cast of it, but it was painful. And, I could only move a little bit because I needed the articulation to do this so the blade can come out.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't really hold the sword. And I remember that whole summer, because we left August 18th. I remember that whole summer, like from March, I was just, working. I'm just doing all this stuff because I knew I was going to be using my right hand. And I got an email from Daniel saying, hey, man, so I'll see you next week. I see you in 2 weeks. And you have been practicing with your left hand, right? I'm like, oh, shit. Yeah, man. Every day, all day, left hand. And I'm like, what the hell? So I only had 2 weeks to start doing it with my left. And it was just so awkward because now I got to figure out what I'm doing, because when you're doing, one hand stuff, so I had to figure out how was I going to do and swing, and with my left and just make it real and put my body into it. It took a long time. I broke a lot of shit. I broke a lot of shit, and it was crazy. Yeah, so yeah, unbelievable. I was breaking shit in hotels. I was like, oh, shit, I'm so sorry. Hey, look, I broke the chandelier. What were you doing? Swinging that sword. I had like this rubber sword that Daniel gave me. And I was just like, and that was season 2. So, yeah, it was quite interesting. I bumped into a lot of stuff because I was trying to work the left and it was just not. And then trying to flower with it and go behind your back and come around. It was just so awkward. So awkward.
No, and I can feel your pain. I was actually left-handed until I was 3.
Right.
I had a German babysitter who would slap my hand every time I used my left hand.
Wow.
Wow. So I became right-handed. I can do some things with my left hand, but not a lot. So I can't even imagine having to swing a sword, whether it weighed 1 pound or 20 pounds.
And those swords are heavy. Those swords are heavy.
How heavy is the one you have? Because I want to see it.
It's the weight of a real broadsword.
Oh my God.
Everything is the weight of the real sword. That's one thing that our prop masters made sure. Everything was the weight. So when you had to use the real hero one, it was the same weight. It wasn't awkward and you weren't slinging something, faster. Yeah. So it was that was quite interesting. To learn those mechanics, and I watched a lot of videos, watched a lot of people, and it was very, very educational. And now I find myself swinging everything, with both hands. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I get the broom, right? Just okay, yeah, with everything. So it's crazy.
I'm sure that doesn't go over well so much, but you're breaking chandeliers.
Yeah, everything. Yeah. But
I do the same thing. I flip things, so.
Yeah, I throw things, catch things all the time, just to make sure your hand-eye coordination, because you never know when you're going to have to use that again.
Mm-hmm.
And, like I said, with this character for Stranger Things, I don't have anything like that to do, but he's a very interesting, almost similar to Nathaniel, but he's got more. I would say the layers in this particular guy is more complex, and he's a lot more intense, but quiet.
Which is terrifying.
Yeah, which is terrifying. So, which I'm glad, because I was looking to do something that it was just all about the eyes. And interesting enough, it was this time last year that we started discussing the whole thing with Stranger Things. And we were supposed to start shooting in March, but, COVID hit.
Yeah.
So when I put myself on tape for the Lieutenant Colonel, Tim and I shot that again, and we shot it like a film.
Again.
And I have this really cool scene that I'm going to be doing with Paul Reiser. That was the audition piece, and it's pretty much still the same scene. But just in that conversation, it's a four-page scene for me. But just in that conversation, it's heavy, and it's very dangerous.
Oh my God.
It's one of those things where, this guy is a badass, and this is who you call when you want E.T.'s ass kicked. You call this guy. So who are you going to call? Call Lieutenant Colonel. He kicks E.T.'s ass all the time. So
if I was writing this, that would be the title. Who do you call to kick E.T.'s ass?
Who can kick E.T.'s ass? So to prepare for this guy, I did do some research on guys that African American gentlemen who was in, I can't think of it. It was 164, 167th Tank Regiment under Patton. And that particular tank regiment, from my understanding, did not lose one tank in the European theater from the moment they landed in Tunisia all the way to Bastogne, the Battle of the Bulge. And, we hear about the Tuskegee Airmen all the time, mm-hmm. but we need to hear more about these guys, which I'm going to make a personal effort to make this a passion project for me. Also, the Harlem Hellcats. It was like second term of Obama's stay in office. It was, I think, close to the last year when he was in office, that Chuck Schumer had awarded the family of a gentleman who had just died, who was in the Harlem Hellcats. Mm-hmm. And basically, the Germans they had pushed both times in World War I, World War II. They had pushed the Germans back across the Rhine River, and this particular one incident, it was in World War I. The Germans they did a fake surrender and jumped in the trench with them, and it was hand-to-hand combat, and not so many guys survived, but two gentlemen did survive. And it just went down to hand-to-hand with knives. Everybody was out of ammo. So Chuck Schumer awarded that gentleman's family his Congressional Medal of Honor, I think the second term of Obama's stay in office, but it was like the last 2 years. So I know that Will Smith has a story. Max Brooks had wrote a script about it, couldn't get it made. And so he went on to Brad Pitt did it, World War Z. Mm. That got made instead. So what Max did was convert his script into a graphic novel, which Will has the rights to. So I read last year that they were going to make that a film. So I'm waiting to see that. Now, it's going to be interesting. And hopefully they do it right, because we need to see that story.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, my mind is I'm speechless. And if you haven't noticed, mm-hmm. I like to talk. So It's very powerful things, and I love that you're making that a project. We're seeing now is it a time for innovation. Now is the time for us to look at ourselves and say, what are we good at, but what can we do more? We've talked about it before, and it's like, I've been writing for a decade, covering MMA, interviewing fighters, and last November I hit writer's block. It's the worst thing I've ever experienced, where I would try to write something and nothing. Right. We're coming from somebody who was able to, I've written pieces that I don't remember writing.
Right.
I'll start typing, and then the next thing I know, there's a full piece in front of me. And that to me is like the experience, the everything. And when COVID hit and we had to start working from home, I said, I've never really put myself on video. Nobody ever hears my voice. Let's do a podcast. I said, but it's my podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
I said, I want to interview the people that I get to interview. And during this time, getting to talk to photographers, to cutmen. I talked to Burt Watson, who actually used to be Joe Lewis's manager way back in the day. And him talking about getting to meet Mandela, and Mandela was a boxing fan. And I'm just like, some of these stories that have come out. He said he joined the Marine Corps because his mom brought home a magazine, and he opened one of the pages and saw, I wanted to say, he said, a brother in uniform. And he said, I want to do that.
Yeah. And
he's like, by the time I was 25, I had been around the world so many times. I had done so many things. And to get to hear these stories, it's just a different approach to this. I know I tried to come in with some questions because it's you. This is a different outlet for me. But really, like, that part of it right there, that little piece about how passionate you are, is just breathtaking. Like, it's fantastic.
Oh, thanks. Thanks. I basically, for me, being a African American man, what I try to do is not be boxed in and not be considered, this is what they do, or this is what you're supposed to do, or this is how you're supposed to act. No, because of the business I'm in, I've had a chance to travel the world. That's one thing. I always wanted to do that and learn other cultures, and to present to everyone there are no stereotypes. So whatever you think, it's going to get broken with me. And that's so important and so key, because I have bumped up against racism, in college, in high school, in professional sports, maybe 3 or 4 times in our business, the film industry. And, I had to correct that several times. And, everyone walks away with a better understanding. I never got into a confrontation with someone because of that, but got into a conversation about it. And once everything was said and done, again, like I said, I reiterate, we walked away with a better understanding, or they walked away with a better understanding. So, and you always have to present yourself, represent yourself in a positive way. And it's just quite interesting that if one doesn't, it's easy to be typecast. It's easy to be like, see, that's how they are. That's how that person is. So I a lot of times, I have been in situations where I was the only person of color on this set or at this place or over someone's house. And I remember, and I was just talking about this the other day, season 3, Badlands. I had a conversation with Al Goff, our showrunner. We were talking about, how this is a dystopian society 500 years into the future. And he said, don't you think that every ethnicity would be alive? And it just wouldn't be white folks, this or that. It would be everybody. And I'm like, you're right. And it wasn't hard to notice going into when they introduced me in season 2, it wasn't hard to see that they had every ethnicity on that set. I had to come all the way over to Ireland, right, where there are black folks there, but not a lot. So a lot of the black folks, you know, came from the States, are from the UK, are, you know, Africa, or, you know, certain places like that. But I remember distinctly going back to my trailer, and I was just so overwhelmed that I'm seeing faces of color, not only in front of the camera, but behind the camera and in the office also. And I just, it kind of messed me up right now. I kind of like went behind the trailer and just bawled for about 10 minutes because I was just so like overwhelmed. Like, I got to come all the way up here. And then, you know, you come back to the States and you might see one or two people of color, da-da-da-da. I'm just like, this is bullshit. This is, you know, unless you work in Mississippi or Chicago or Detroit, you know, then you got everybody, you know, Vancouver, Toronto, you're seeing all these spaces. But a lot of times here in this, you know, especially in LA, you know, you're hard pressed to walk around the lot and go, okay, brother, okay, yeah, my Latino brother, okay, all right, brother from India, okay, all right, cool. You know, it's hard. You're hard pressed sometimes. So it's a lot different now, but 2-3 years ago,
well, and
you know, it was just stupid.
If you look at those, you know, the first season, obviously you weren't a part of that, but you look at the first season, and they could have gone down a horrible path with the typecasting because you had the, you know, the Barons and the Cogs, and then you look and they're all diverse, and you've got different groups, and you've got different, you know, regions and everything else. And if you guys haven't watched the show, stop what you're doing and go watch it. I was upset the day that I found out there wasn't going to be a season 4, but I won't go into that. But really, the diversity, like you said, you know, when Pilgrim comes on, you know, Aramis, like everybody in the show bringing, you know, themselves in. And I really hope that that show gets some sort of rebirth, gets some sort of that, for nothing other than the storytelling being amazing, but the diversity it showed, and it wasn't forced. There was no reason where like you're like real. Typecast this guy, or he's got to be this guy, or he's got to be this guy. I mean, I can't say enough good things about the show, and there was nothing I didn't like. And of course, bringing Nick Frost into it, I wasn't sure how I was going to feel because I love Nick Frost. And then to see him,
Nick Frost is the funniest man on the. He's in LA right now. I haven't seen him yet. He's filming.
Oh my God!
But yeah, Nick Frost, even when he's dead ass serious, it's funny. It's funny. I mean, he can say "Good morning, darling," and it's funny, you know. And I don't know how Daniel did it on a daily basis without just losing it. It was one day, I couldn't help it. I couldn't help it. I could not help it. I couldn't help it. I couldn't help it. I couldn't help it. It was me, Eugenia, Emily, Lewis, Daniel, Nick, Allie, when we were working up to 7 strikes as one. And we were going to meet with the cats with the mace and the where the red and black. So we were about to have that meeting, and we all had dialogue. And I'll never forget it. I looked at Nick, and Nick goes, "You bastard," right? And it's on me, right? So I lose it, right? And then Eugenia lost it. Then Daniel lost it. And then we all lost it. Then it was 30 minutes of that. And then Al showed up. Our showrunner showed up. And we just didn't care. I mean, it was hard for Paco because he's trying to shoot this scene and move on. And we just look at Nick and just start losing it every time. The man was just so funny. He just stand there and look at you like, right? And you lose it. So yeah, that was a hard day. That was a hard day. Because everybody had the fucking giggle bops for sure. It was crazy.
Is that a term? Is that an industry term? Giggle bops?
Giggle bops, yeah. Cut it out with the giggle bops. Shut up. This man's funny. it was great, man. But I don't know how Daniel did it on a daily basis because it's hard. I'm like, I know, man, because he's just saying dialogue and it's just falls out and you go like, what the fuck? It's crazy.
It's crazy. He says his dialogue, you laugh and you go, that's not funny. He goes, that's my line. Like
exactly. It was so crazy. It was awesome, man. But to be with that group of actors, and I must say this, that group of actors, season 3, every season with Badlands, there was not one knucklehead actor that we did not love and care, and we're all so tight, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I think we send messages to each other on our WhatsApp once a week because somebody's always doing something and we're always congratulating each other for something that they're doing. So, but yeah, that was really refreshing for the first time to be on a set with a bunch of actors and we all took care of each other. We were all there for each other all the time. It didn't matter. I mean, if it was freezing cold, we were there for each other. You know, you don't have to do off camera for me. No, I'm staying. You know, what are you doing here? I'm doing off camera for you. You can go to your trailer. I'm staying. You know,
I want to be there for you. Yeah.
Yeah. If you're out here and everybody else is out here, I need to be here. I can't go be the little pansy actor standing in my trailer being warm. You know, so I might as well put on a couple of layers. Can you see my face? Yeah. All right, let's go. You know, and do the dialogue. So it was crazy.
And it just blows my mind. You know, we don't ever get that back. You know, the back door into what it's like for you guys to go through this stuff, but everything you talk about is 110%. It's commitment to the role. You become the character. And I know a lot of people say that, but when you see somebody on screen and somebody goes, you know, that should have been Wesley Snipes.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Never in a million. Everyone who cast that show went, we made the right choice.
Yeah.
Let the Demolition Man stay with Stallone. I love that movie.
I love that movie.
It's a great movie.
Yeah, it is. It is.
But realistically, you embody the character so much that it's hard to tell. It's just like with music. Did they write the lyrics first or did they write the song? You know, what came first and what was paired together? And so many times you'll try to break that down. And I love progressive rock and progressive metal because it changes time signatures and everything so crazy.
Exactly.
But you'll listen and you'll go, okay, the guitar came first and then the drum. No.
Yeah.
Hold on. And you're trying to, like, piece together what came first. And I feel like it's the same way for some actors. Where you'll see them on screen and you'll go, they're reading lines.
Yeah.
They're not becoming the character. And that's why I watch...
If they're not there, yeah.
Rewatching those fight scenes, even the dialogue between you two is... Like, you're just in there and you forget about everything else that's going on. So...
It's like a good, you know, that show was, you know, it's like being in a master's class, and you're there for the other actors so much, because if you're driving that scene by yourself, it's no fun. It's not about you winning all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I do want to win, even if I'm supposed to die in that scene or I lose the argument in that scene. I'm still going for the win, but. The main thing is to have a really cool tennis match with your actors in that scene. So it's a lot of give and take, and there's a lot of pushing. Like I said, with Nick and even Oliver Platt was like this. Also, I did a film with him where
I love Oliver Platt.
Oliver's the bomb diggity. Dude. He's just like Nick. It just flows and it flies from his cerebral cortex. So.
I just think of Lake Placid every time, though. I mean, I know Three Musketeers, but Lake Placid. Lake Placid is where my mind goes.
So I walk in the scene, and David S. Goyer was directing. This was his first film. So I walk into the scene. I'm playing this detective, and I'm trying to figure out who robbed him. Robbed his safe. And he's having a conversation with Natasha Lyonne, and I come in. And they break off the conversation. He comes over and he goes, "Well, officer, did you?" It wasn't written. It wasn't written. He said, "Well, officer, did you find out who committed the great train robbery?" Right? I'm already exactly in my head. I'm done. And I'm saying to myself, "You better not break character, Sherman. You better not break characters. Stop it. I'm like, this motherfucker's funny. I know, but stop. So I go on to say my line, and we're walking, and we stop, and we're supposed to have this conversation. We're supposed to go off. And so my line was, okay, well, who was that you were speaking with? And it wasn't it wasn't scripted. He said, that's my little sister's niece's uncle's little sister's daughter's friend. right? Right? That's my little sister's niece, uncle's daughter's little friend. And yes, I'm married, and he holds up his ring, and I'm fucking her, right? And he shows me his ring. And exactly. So everybody, all the other actors in the scene, is in the kitchen of the restaurant, and they are about to lose their shit. And I'm just about to lose. And I'm like, Sherman, you got to do something. It was a split second. It was just one of those things that had a split second. So he called me Sherlock Homie. That's what it was. Sherlock Homie, right? And when he said Sherlock Homie, I wanted to laugh so bad. And I just grabbed him by his shirt and I slammed him against the wall. And I said, I'm going to come back here tomorrow and I won't answer, whatever the line was. And I called him Mr. Motherfucker. Right? I called him Mr. Motherfucker. And I let go of his shirt and I walk off. So then it became, all right, I'm in the scene with him. I got outdo him. So, and so there's a scene where he gets knocked out and he's laying on the floor. And I walk in and I find a kid who has autism. And I know he did it, but because this guy, Oliver's playing such an asshole, and he's got all these great ad libs. He called Miguel Nunez. I won't even say what he called Miguel Nunez. And he called him a cock gobbler, right? and so I was on set that day. And it's Wesley Snipes, myself, John Leguizamo, Oliver Platt.
Oh my God.
This was the cast, right? And Wesley just did this hell of a performance where he was like riding a bat like it was a pogo stick, but it was just, everybody was just trying to outdo each other. I mean, we weren't trying to outdo each other, but it was just, the film it just led you to, create this other thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had said something, I just was talking to the lead, and I said something about, that's okay, let him stay there. And I said he's the poster boy for the prevention of inbreeding, right? And so Oliver took that later on and started, I'm the poster boy, right? And it was just really crazy. So Badlands was just like that. It was one of those things where you're comfortable with your castmates and you can push each other all the time, and that makes for great acting, again, because you're finding real behavior, and it's always about behavior and giving. If you're a giving person in real life, you're also going to give in those scenes. And Orla Brady, who plays Lydia, she's just absolutely just one of the best actresses I've ever worked with, and she's so giving and so present all the time. And it was just a thrill and an honor to work with all those actors all the time.
Well, and even
never had a bad day at work.
What you just did, you just went from telling the most hilarious story to going, I learned, and you just shifted like that.
Yeah, you have to.
Like,
I get smoked and have a bad day. You always want to leave work going, there's something wrong with me. There's really something wrong with me, because I had an acting coach always tell me, surprise yourself. Do something that surprises yourself, no matter what it is. If it's a look, if it's a gesture, or if it's an ad lib or whatever it is, just do something to surprise yourself. Keep everybody on their toes, because people are going to come at you. When you have the Oliver Platts and you have the Nick Frosts of the world, you got to come with it. You can't just, I'm in the scene, I'm an actor. Okay, what's my line? Because there's nothing more frustrating to be in a scene with someone and there is nothing behind their eyes, and all you can tell that they're just waiting for you to stop talking so they can say their lines. When I see that, I'm going for the jugular. I'm going to think of all kind of shit to do. I'm going to just, it's crazy because what am I getting from this person? Nada. Nada. And it's really, really scary. And then when you're working with someone who just can just bring it without doing anything, when you're working with the Julia Roberts and the James Gandolfinis of the world, then you really got to be on your game. Really got to be on your game because they bring it.
Well, and I love the inadvertent name drops, but it's true. I mean,
I'm
with
fortunate to work with. I'm fortunate. I have been fortunate to work with nothing but heavyweights in my career.
No, like
and
no doubt.
I think, for a kid coming from South Central, and to be thrust into a situation to where you're working with some of the best people in the world. Come on, that says something about what you're doing. And it's a testament to your work, regardless if you're making tons of money or not. If you're in that arena with those folks, man, you're doing your job. You're doing your job.
Yeah, and you've worked with some, like, even going all the way back to Colors, the Robert Duvall and Donald Sutherland, like, everybody you work with, we could list Don Cheadle, Damon Wayans, like...
It was all our first job. It was all our first job.
Which is insane!
It was all our first job. And, like, the night before I auditioned, I had watched Blue Velvet. And I was like, fuck. So I'm sitting in the waiting room, and Dennis Hopper walks in. I'm like, oh, shit, it's the well-dressed man. I was always a Dennis Hopper fan, but I just knew him as a well-dressed man. And I did not do my due diligence to look on the appointment sheet 2 days before and see that Dennis Hopper was directing this film. And when he walked through the door and nodded to me, I'm like, oh, shit, Dennis Hopper. And the only note he gave me when I went in the room was like, don't use your hands. It's all about this. And I'm like, okay, right. Now, my performance in that movie, I was a deer in the headlights, but it's okay. It's okay.
That was my 32 years ago.
Film. It's okay, man. It was on the other day. I'm like, sure, with the flat top. Oh, boy.
Well, and to give credit to Dennis Hopper, in my mind, Speed, Waterworld, but really, like, that scene in Speed where he goes, the whim of a madman.
Yeah.
It's hilarious and dark and, like, it's so many different emotions that shouldn't be. But it's the way he did it.
I go all the way back to Apocalypse Now,
Well, yeah, I mean.
But for me, the performance, Blue Velvet, that film, he killed it. They all killed it in that film, It must have been a trip to work with David Lynch.
Oh, my God.
Must have been a trip. Oh, man. Come on, man. Come on. I remember one day I was driving down Sunset and he was promoting Naomi Watts was in I can't think of the movie right now. Mulholland Drive.
Mm-hmm.
And he was on the corner of Highland and Hollywood Boulevard, sitting in a director's chair with a cow on a rope and a sign that says, my movie's coming out soon. Go see it. Mulholland Drive. And I'm driving by, I'm looking at this fucking David Lynch, man, on the corner of Highland and Hollywood Boulevard, promoting this film, sitting in a director's chair with a cow. Damn. Who does that? David Lynch does. It was very interesting.
I can't think of a better way to promote a movie. I can honestly say, I'm not going to lie and say I've seen Blue Velvet, but by the end of this year, I will have.
Oh, you got to, oh man, come on. You got to watch that tonight. Have to, oh my God. Watch it. When you watch it, hit me up.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Go, wow. Well, that's the performance that I'm looking for one of these days. One of those performances, because he puts himself out there.
Well, and
I
don't need to see the movie to know that Badlands probably was that for you. And
yeah,
I think you're still going. I mean, you've got a birthday coming up next month. You're not slowing down at all.
I'm not at all. I would say also the closest to that would be Virus. For me, with Virus, that film basically opened up a lot of inner doors for me because I'm working with all those fantastic actors, and we know what Cliff is doing and everybody's doing. But it was one of those things to where I just let it go. I wasn't afraid to go over the top because you can always bring an actor down, but it's hard to bring an actor up.
Mm-hmm.
And I just, when Richie goes crazy, I just let myself go and go crazy. I just let myself, I figure out how to maneuver and operate around that ship. And Richie's the smartest person on that ship. And he's going to figure out how to get off that thing and fuck everybody else. It's every man for himself. But I'm getting off this ship because I say it. I got to get off this ship. And so I started devising all these things, the ejection seat to get off that ship. And the way I got that job, I walked into the audition, and John Bruno, who's a very good friend, and Gail and Hurd were in the room. And Richie was supposed to be, this burnt out ex-Vietnam veteran with blonde hair, right? So this is when everybody had an opportunity to get a job because it wasn't about ethnicity. It was about the best actor comes into the door. That's who we're hiring. Mm-hmm. And I had to follow this cable to the ejection seat. I mean, to the launch pad for a missile. And so I'm following the cable, and I said, "Oh, hello, Mr. Cable. Where are you going to lead us?" And so, oh, cool, And I find this thing, and that got the job for me.
Oh my God.
That got the job. John said, "Oh, dude, you got the job right then and there." And
wow.
As far as the Mexican was concerned, when I went to that audition, I walked into the room, and it was every heavyweight black actor in that room that could have their own freaking show, their own movie. And I was pissed. I just got pissed. I just went nuts. I was like, fuck this, man. This is just really awful to have us all in here, shuffling for the same gig, man. This is crazy. At least space it out to where we're not seeing each other, right?
Yeah, give me a hope. Give me...
Yeah. So I went into the room pretty pissed off. Cordial, nice, everything. They couldn't feel what was coming off of me, but I'm like, I'm going to use this for the guy. And did the scene, and I knew they had made an offer to Delroy Lindo. But you hear these stories, and I'm not ego stroking myself. It's just a testament of anyone who's listening and watching to not be afraid to just go for it. And whatever you're thinking, just let it fly. And if it doesn't work, at least you committed and you did what you needed to do, and you can go home. There's only 3 auditions. Well, it shouldn't be 3 auditions. It should be an audition before you get there, the audition, and then that's it. When you leave, that's it. And that's with any job. And I remember when I finished the audition, Gore Verbinski had his script and all this paperwork on his desk. And he actually did. I've never done this before. And he pushed the script and goes, "The job is yours. Don't say anything when you walk out the door." I'm like, "Get the fuck out of here. You stop messing with me. Is you April Fool's?" No, it's not. He goes, "No."
You're like,
dude.
Hold on.
He got up.
No.
He got up. He walked around and he said, "The job is yours." He killed it. I'm like, "Oh, thank you, sir." That's how it happened. Yeah, it was crazy. And then the next thing I know, I'm standing there with Gandolfini and Julia and Brad and J.K. Simmons. It's just like, what the hell is this? What happened? Somebody just pinched me because I need to wake up. Well, it was just one of those things. But again, it comes from, and we go back to martial arts training. It's being prepared, and knowing your training. Mm-hmm. And that's all it is. Just knowing your training. And when all else fails, you fall back on training all the time. And that's what it takes. It's all about your training. And you can be prepared for a lot of things, but if you forget your training and panic, then, you're not going to breathe. You're not going to do certain things. You're going to be in trouble.
Yeah, you're gonna only focus on defense instead of trying to get out of the situation.
Exactly. What's my exit? What's my strategy to get out of this? Mm-hmm. And because, as you know, there's a counter for everything. You know, you can't literally just block a punch. You can roll punches. Nobody can actually block a punch. You know, if you're in a situation in the streets and you throw something that gets blocked, you can always, you know, reverse that punch and go here, go there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can just do everything with one hand if you want to. You know, hence the one hand swordsman. You know, I can't tell you how many times I was watching that. I was like, okay, how's he doing this? So, you know, how's dude doing this? Is that his strong hand or his weak hand? So it's just interesting, and, you know, because of the sports and the martial arts background, you take that into everything all the time.
And you could feel it in those scenes. You know, the action scenes. Obviously, we know they're stunt work. They're meant to protect you guys. But like you said, Daniel wants to run up a wall. You know, you had the opportunity to jump off stuff, wire work, whatever it is. You know, some of the scenes that were in there. But at the end of the day, like, because of the mindset you have, not necessarily the skill set, but the mindset made that look more real. The people you had working with you guys made it look real. And, you know, some of the stuff in the show, some people had said was over the top. But I don't think so. We're 500 years in the future. We've got people with a gift who can turn it on and off when they get, you know, or when they get cut. That's the part you're going to focus on. Like,
yeah. I will say this. I mean, the way it ended, and they had started talking about a spinoff, and the spinoff was going to be, okay, guns are slowly making their way back.
Mm-hmm.
And Nick was going to end up being the sheriff or the marshal of this town. And then we had the two kids. We had the widow's kid, and we had Henry growing up.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, Nathaniel's off in the woods still looking for Cressida. You know, so you seen Cressida? Who's Cressida? Don't worry about it. Have you seen her?
Have you seen her?
Okay. So eventually, Moon was going to work his way into that town and run back into Baji. And so the focus was going to be on the kids and Baji and Moon. But and then wherever they were going to go with how they were going to bring Sonny back and all these things was going to be interesting for them to find out, for us to find out. But I would not completely put anything. I will not say the show is completely dead. I will not say that questions won't be answered.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so at some point, and we can forget about it right now, because that show at the time was the most expensive show that AMC was doing, even more expensive than Game of Thrones, which shooting in Belfast.
Jeez.
So our show was very expensive, because think about it, we had 2 full crews, 100 people plus, fight unit and drama unit, and you got 2 catering units. You got all these things, all these components going. And it was a very expensive show. So I get it. So just think if they were trying to do that now with COVID.
Yep.
You know, because you have to have a COVID budget. So, we'd have got shot down. No, guys.
Well, sorry. I won't say who, but I reached out to somebody, I would say in charge of the show, after the cliffhanger and after the news that the show wasn't going to get. And I said, hey, why the cliffhanger? Like, what was the reasoning for that? And he said, well, because we had planned the spinoff, but the new head of the network didn't want to make it.
Yeah.
And hearing that confirmed, I mean, obviously, I'll tell you who it is later, but beauty of social media. But really, the end of the show, him picking up the gun, you're like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And then to hear that news, you're like, son of a bitch.
I know. Because I was looking forward to the fact that maybe now I can talk them into letting me have this articulating hand, because I was going to have my moon sword, all these other things. I was going to have a new uniform that I could pull these things off and throw these shurikens, right? Mm-hmm. Plus have a 6-shooter. Oh yeah.
Oh,
I was all ready. I was all ready for it. I was all ready for, like, you know, to collaborate. And like, I want this cool ass scarf, and I want just straight Clint Eastwood, dude. I wanted to go straight Clint Eastwood, you know. But you know, it's like, here we go. And yeah, it's they started bringing over a lot of other stuff that the BBC was doing. And, you know, God bless them. They lost a lot of viewers because of that. And but I understand. I understand the reason why they did it. It's because it was a very expensive show,
Yeah, the financial
and
aspect always wins.
yeah, yeah, it always wins because they couldn't blame it on the viewership or anything else, that the show sucked or whatever. It was just very expensive, and then on top of that, to try to do P&A, press and ads, um, then you're really escalating the budget. So yeah,
Well,
I get it.
and
I get
AMC
it.
had a really bad knack, and I think they actually did it with Badlands, so I'm not going to say it was completely, like, not working. But they would do,
Yeah,
like, Walking Dead, then they throw in this new show, then they do The Talking Dead. And it was like, what is this new show? And I think that's the first time they threw Badlands in there to see how it would be. And I was
yeah,
happy that it got, they changed where it was.
yeah,
Um, because it did bring me into the show. The
yeah,
martial arts aspect, just the first episode, the cinematography alone was shot beautifully.
yeah.
You see
Oh,
those
it was,
first.
yeah, yeah,
It was unreal and it was unlike anything else current. It
yeah,
had the feel of the old martial arts movies without being in color and not looking cheesy, looking real and looking like, okay, this could be real.
yeah,
Um, so I'll talk about that all day long, but
yeah,
obviously the focal point, you're in Stranger Things now, which
yeah, yeah.
the way somebody got me to watch that was they said it's a sci-fi version of the Goonies for
Hmm.
adults.
Hmm.
I said okay, and we watched 1, 2, and 3. So I'm really excited for this,
Yeah,
especially finding out you're going to be a part of it. I know they don't have a release date. I'm not asking you for any plot things. We already discussed that.
yeah.
um,
It's going to be very interesting. I will say this: it's going to be more scarier and bloodier. I can't say that. So, and this won't be the last season.
oh
That's for
no,
sure.
no, and I'm excited for that. And now if Lieutenant Colonel Sullivan pulls out a broadsword, though, I might lose my shit.
Dude, wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't that be great? I got this. I picked this up from a friend of mine.
Like,
Yeah.
just not even as a part of, like, you, just, like, be in his office. And he'd be like, that's a
Is it
story
on the
for
wall
another
or
time.
something?
Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah. My cousin gave me that.
Yeah.
Uh,
He's a real
that's
badass.
funny. Yeah. But I'm really liking this guy. I'm really liking what uh, his mechanics. I really dig that I was able to just fall right into what the brothers had conceived because I didn't get a chance to talk to them until the day that I shot my first day, and
Seems to
their
be a
only note,
theme for you. Like,
yeah,
just.
their only note to me was, dude, you killed it. You did exactly how we wrote it on paper. Thank you. And again, that's just understanding, watching the show, understanding the whole thing, and doing the due diligence of trying to give them a realistic character, and pulling real people in, and then adding myself to the situation about how would I really react if I was in charge of all of this,
Hmm.
all this equipment, all these men, and I have access to just like anything I want to. Um, so again, if I had that, I wouldn't be arrogant about it. I would want to use certain things as a last result because I like to get answers,
Hmm.
and even as a normal person, as Sherman, I like to get answers, and that's what Lieutenant Colonel Sullivan is
It's
doing.
because I threw in Donald
Because I'm
Sutherland
thinking,
earlier.
yeah,
That's
get
why.
it down Sutherland, uh, and it's quite interesting uh, that I can pull certain aspects again of my personality to give to him, but he's an intense dude. He's an intense dude, and I'm having fun with him because he's just, I wish he didn't have to say anything. Just walk into a room and just,
Nod.
yeah. And there's a couple of those scenes, but it's like um, I'm doing some really foul. I can't say that. There's some really foul shit that I'm doing to get answers because I need to get the answers because I know what's right in order to get those things done, in order to save and everybody. So he's a very cool character.
I mean,
Very cool
sounds
character.
like it. You know,
Yeah.
we had a running joke. There was a building around the corner from our house that's been worked on for probably the better part of a decade. And of course, once we watched Stranger Things, we're like, is this like a secret Russian facility? Because you'd see people go in and come out. See people. The building was nothing. You'd see a window broken out, and then it'd be patched up, and then you'd see, you know, a bunch of vans there, work vans, and then they leave, and like probably, so we call it the Stranger Things building. That's what it is.
That's crazy.
And probably like 3 weeks ago, they turned it into an attorney's office, and I'm like, I'm still not convinced.
No. They got a portal down there. There's some place in the basement. They have a door, and you can go to another portal.
We looked in the windows. Okay. We were like,
yeah.
Are we gonna see a Demogorgon?
Yeah, exactly. But it's going to be a very cool, exciting season. I know the fans will not be disappointed at all. I mean, it's action-packed from Rooter to Tutor, and there's so many new characters on the show now, and everybody's bringing their own little mix to what's going on. And I'm very excited about this. It's a really cool chapter in my life as an actor to get this done and to be part of it. And I'm so honored because I'm a fan, you know, and it feels the last couple of jobs, the last 4 jobs I've been involved with, I've been fans of that particular show or genre. Mm-hmm. And it's just awesome to be, you know, doing something that you love to do. But, you know, you got to play your part. You got to play your part and, you know, to be a part of this bigger thing that's so awesome.
Well, and you get to work with Paul Reiser doing something that's not funny.
Yeah. And there's something in there, because if you are a fan of like aliens and certain genre films, mm-hmm. then you'll get it. That's all I can say. You'll get certain dialogue and certain things, and there's something that I say that is a straight reference to something. There's all these great. I can't say what it is.
That's fine.
Easter egg. But there's a lot. The brothers are dropping a lot of Easter eggs to a lot of their favorite films and a lot of their favorite characters. So good for them.
Well, yeah,
good for them.
And I saw bringing Robert Englund as part of it, so that's kind of exciting.
Yeah.
Fun fact: the only movie I've ever been in, I had a buddy who made his own Freddy Krueger movie. It's on the internet.
Oh, cool.
I did probably 40% of the camera work too. Not my finest work because I'm not a cameraman. But seeing that, I was like, okay, like it's not just pulling in these certain people just because they're a name. You know, they're pulling in everybody who's a part of the show fits that mold, and if they haven't fit that mold, they broke it. You know,
I would say Carmen Cuba, casting director, and the brothers and the showrunner, they know exactly what they're doing. They know exactly what they're bringing in, and the pieces that they're bringing in. Everybody fits a specific part, so it's not like there's no odd kind of thing. Well, why did they do that? Why did they do this? Everybody fits. Mm-hmm. It's so cool. Everybody fits right in their space. And it's so cool, man. I'm reading these scripts. I'm like, oh, man, oh, my God. It's crazy.
And that's cool for you because you've been doing this for 32 years. You know, I don't mean to put a timestamp on it, but I feel like...
No, it's cool. Oh, I got 10% of my battery. Oh,
that's fine. We're about to wrap up. It's fine.
Okay.
But
yeah, it's cool because, you know, you're doing something that, you know, you're a fan of, but I can't wait to see what everybody brings to the table, to tell you the truth. I can't wait to see. Like, I'm a fan of Game of Thrones, and so they got, you know, the guy who trained Arya, you know, as the many-faced god, you know, that guy. I can't think of it. Yeah. So, oh, man.
The Faceless Man.
The Faceless Man. I mean, just like, what was his, Jokadon, whatever his name was.
Not today.
Crazy, man. Yeah.
Dude, I love Game of Thrones too. That was another thing. But at the end of the day, I'm eternally grateful for you taking the time.
Oh, dude, anytime.
You really brought so much to this, and I always say that because I go in expecting one thing, and like you said, you got to surprise yourself. Yeah. Did I really think we'd be talking for 2 hours? No.
Oh, dude, it's awesome.
And it's cool. It was fantastic. So on behalf of the Quiggin Out MMA podcast, I'm going to give my little shout-outs, epicjitstees.com for making my shirt, my logo. And then I've got some local businesses. Oh, yeah.
I see the swag, baby.
So this is Fat Boy Jiu Jitsu, Bertsos Bakeshop, and then La Barba Cubano. They're all local. A beard company, obviously a bake shop, and then the Jiu Jitsu company. He actually does it's a Thor shirt, but it's a Fat Thor. I was gonna wear it today, but I thought Batman was more appropriate. So
yeah, that's cool.
But really, like in this day and age, we've got to help support each other. So these are all businesses I help support, and they're not paying me to say this. They're not paying. They didn't ask me to do any of this, but for me, just getting them some exposure, just getting something up there. Seems like the kind of person you are. So the only thing I'm going to ask you to do, if you can, is let me see that sword.
Oh, it's over there. I have to go get it. Hold on.
Okay.
Hold on.
I had to.
Hold on. Got to go over there and get it. I have it over here with the other ones. And here is the moon sword. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I should have put it over here. Yeah.
Oh my God.
So, there we go. There we go. And this is the one I used to love to practice with because I lost the ring. But, yeah, this sucker right here. There you go.
Yeah. I don't know if you can hear me or not, but that just made my year like that.
Yeah, this is the one right here.
Wow.
I can't even tell you how many times I knocked myself in the head with it, but yeah, this is the bad boy.
That is incredible.
Yeah, man.
Well, sir, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome.
And enjoy the rest of your year. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, whichever it is. Really anymore. Just be safe out there. And I really can't wait for season 4 of Stranger Things. And any side projects you have. Just talking about them today.
There's a lot of stuff that we're doing, so we'll talk again.
Absolutely.
We should talk in February.
Absolutely. Sounds good, man.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
All right. You're welcome.